Thank you. And welcome everyone back to our January 21st, 2021 school board meeting. We've completed our executive session. If you all would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and we'll move to public comments. Mr. Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To fit our speakers in, we have 13, Mr. Chair. How much time?
2 minutes max.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our first speaker is Cobbk12. He will discuss team trust and accountability, and he'll be followed by Trish McNally.
Sorry, guys. I'm here representing Cobb's one team, speaking to ensure that all team members' voices are heard. The Cobb-Douglas Public Health website lists the 14-day case rate among ages 5 to 17 as 765, which is the second highest number after ages 23 and up, and places them in the high spread category and, quote, increasing. The epidemiological curve listed on the Cobb-Douglas report has not gone down or even plateaued since the beginning of the pandemic. Not one day since the beginning have we had less cases than the day before, and the current 14-day period appears to have the steepest slope. As of writing this, our community spread in Cobb is approximately 0.9%, which is almost 1 out of every 100 people in the county. The new, more aggressively contagious strain of the virus is now in Cobb County. All of this data was readily available and paints a grim picture of the trajectory we are currently on. So my question is, what other possible data is being given to our decision makers to justify our current course of action? This is not rhetorical. I'm requesting a written response to this question by next Friday. Demand the local and state governments help provide some form of childcare solution to parents who aren't able to work virtually. Spend money on more laptops and virtual hotspots for disadvantaged students who don't have a computer or even internet access, rather than under-tested sanitation equipment that can be replaced by proper hand washing. Stop forcing teachers to teach both virtually and in person at the same time, since all it's doing is putting high-risk teachers like myself, who was almost on a ventilator, or the now 3 Cobb educators who have lost their lives as of today, in danger, and doing a huge disservice to the students who only get half of the teacher's attention at any given time. And most importantly, actually include teachers in your discussion. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Trish McNally. She will discuss team trust and accountability, and she'll be followed by Jennifer Susko.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm here representing Cobb's one team, speaking to ensure that all team members' voices are heard. Decisions are never easy to make when you're in uncharted territory, and this is where we've been for the past year. You have to do the best with what you know. I remember hearing at a board meeting this year, when asked if we could have done things differently, that hindsight is 20/20. It is, but let's continue to use what we know to make our decisions for 2021. I went to the clinic recently, and the doctor asked me, what do you think is going to be the greatest impact of this school year? I don't have to think about it. The social and emotional well-being of students and staff. I know that most everyone would agree. We understand how vital it is to put social emotional learning as top priority of the next few school years, which we've already started doing. The district has given resources and modules relaying strategies for teachers to use. But if this is truly a priority, we need to look at fiscal opportunities for next year when it comes to allotments and personnel. We need to look at the budget and hire more counselors and support staff. Start up partnerships with groups within our community, and not just at the school-to-school basis, but across the county. I I can work with my school to do this, but I need to know that my kids, students that I have taught across different schools in Cobb County, that they're receiving the supports that they need as well. We need to do this by also taking some of the
30
burden
seconds.
off of the teachers, because we are burning out. If we truly are striving for student success, we need to hire more team members that can be part of our one group, because the load of what is and what is yet to come is too heavy without more people helping to carry it. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jennifer Susko, who will discuss team trust and accountability. She'll be followed by Callie Manjay Garcia.
I'm here representing Cobb's one team, speaking to ensure that all team members' voices are heard. I'm also speaking to remember one of our own whose voice can no longer be heard. On Christmas, we lost a teacher to COVID-19, Mr. Patrick Key. I would like to extend my sincerest gratitude to Mr. Hutchins for establishing the Art Scholarship in memory of Mr. Key. The death of this teacher was hard on Cobb educators. We still feel intense sadness and deep empathy for Mr. Key's wife. Our superintendent wrote an email dedicating only 2 sentences to the teacher's life, but 6 paragraphs to boasting about Cobb County's resolve and swiftly moving on back into buildings. Many of us will not forget that email, which came across as dismissive of Mr. Key and made us feel much worse. As teachers and staff are being asked to do more than ever, we would appreciate that more be done to remember and honor Patrick tonight. His obituary said, Patrick felt passionate about wearing masks during the pandemic. In lieu of flowers, please buy and wear a mask to protect others and yourself in honor of him. That's from his obituary. I'm going to stop talking for a few seconds in honor of Mr. Key. During the silence, I'd like to ask all members of the board and the superintendent to put on your mask as a tribute to this teacher who did everything you asked of him, even teaching through a pandemic.
"30 seconds.
I'd like the record to reflect that some of you did not wear a mask. The final request of a Cobb teacher who died. Your actions in these 2 minutes have spoken louder than words. We see where your priorities are. Please know that many of us reject your false gratitude for staff since we seem disposable to many of you.
Our next speaker is Callie Manjay Garcia, who will discuss team trust and accountability. She'll be followed by Justin Julian.
Hello, I'm here representing Cobb's one team, speaking to ensure that all team members' voices are heard. I'm an educator, I'm a parent of 3 school-age children, and a tax-paying citizen of Cobb County. I have 4 important words for you all today. Novel. From the Latin novellus, never before seen. Because of this novelty, I am fearful of this virus. And yet, I come to school each day to help my students be successful. In order to reduce this fear and anxiety, we need increased mitigation measures, such as reduced class sizes, professional contact tracers, etc. We need our district to advocate for its educators to be vaccinated as soon as possible, and we need the support to do so. Data, from the Latin word meaning a fact given. We as educators use data daily to drive our instruction. Everything we do is data focused. So then shouldn't we have a matrix to base our decisions, whether to be in person or face-to-face? Shouldn't we have our scientists at our board meetings to answer questions? I hope that we are willing to look to the data to make informed decisions for the good of all, because that is what we always do as educators. We use data to adapt our instruction. Empathy, from the Greek em or in, and pathos, feeling. This is what I teach my students and my daughters every day, to say that our families have a choice to protect themselves from this novel virus, and then to deny your educators that choice, thus denying my family that choice, is not empathetic, nor is it equitable. If we have to stay virtual for a while, we can do it. I am so proud of my students and what they have had to overcome. And I tell them that every day that we can do hard things. And finally, communication, from the Latin communicatus, to impart, share. We thank Mr. Agzo for his communication to teachers last Friday, but we want more communication, plain and simple. We're professionals, critical thinkers, we are problem solvers. The district focuses on developing stakeholder involvement and using data to make decisions. We are one team, one goal, student success, but we are in a pandemic, and we have to think about everyone. We are not expendable. Patrick Key is not expendable. The other 2 teachers that have died today are not expendable. No
Time.
one is. I
Our
advocate for a
next
teacher
speaker,
advisory
I'm
council
sorry,
to be
time.
created.
Time, Ms. Garcia. Our next speaker is Justin Julian. He will discuss team trust and accountability. And he will be followed by Anna Clay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Justin Julian. I'm representing Cobb's team, speaking to ensure that all team members' voices are heard. I represent many Cobb County educators, and it's time that teachers speak. It has often been said that there are 2 kinds of people that work for CCSD, those who teach and those who support those that teach. We all agree that we cannot reach our one goal of student success without the hard work, unity, and collaboration between each team member in our district. This pandemic is a health crisis. It's a health crisis that has been seditiously politicized, transformed into several polarizing opinions, and has fractured our team. Often, parents find themselves frustrated with teachers for what they believe is teachers not wanting to teach. Similarly, educators find themselves frustrated with parents for what they believe is parents not caring about their health. The truth is somewhere in there. District leadership must prioritize the needs over the wants. I am here to ask the district to prioritize the needs of every team member. And for some team members, this priority has already been fulfilled. Leadership offered this choice to parents. However, our district leadership cannot unite one team by ignoring the facts that the needs of the other team members, including educators, have not been met. We must stop ignoring the fact that Cobb educators have the resources and are already using these to educate virtual students in classrooms, and we continue to get sick, quarantined, hospitalized, or worse. I am asking school leadership to meet the needs of all team members, that Cobb County staff and educators provide the
30
same
seconds.
choice that our parents were provided. We can fulfill our job requirements either virtually or face-to-face. What we need is the opportunity, like Cobb parents, to choose the learning environment that is the healthiest for our individual health needs, and we need this directive from leadership. Meeting the needs of all team members is hard, but leaders do hard things. Please, be the leaders that unite rather than inflame. Do the hard work. Support those that teach. Keep your promises. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Anna Clay, who will discuss team trust and accountability. She will be followed by Kara Harris.
All right, good evening. I'm here representing Cobb's team, speaking to ensure that all team members' voices are heard. First of all, I would like to thank the board and superintendent for putting safety first and returning to remote instruction this week. And I want to thank you for ensuring that team members received the notification before a public announcement was made. It may seem like a minor thing, but I've heard from dozens of teachers who felt respected when they got the email before the general public. It made us feel more like part of the team, and it gave us more time to prepare for the transition. I'm also here to request some information regarding the decision-making process. When the decision was made to stay remote this week, what was the deciding factor? Was there a specific number of cases or a specific case rate per 100,000 people? Was there a specific number of teacher absences on a specific day? Whatever the threshold was, have we dropped below those numbers in the last 7 days? By all indicators, we are in a worse COVID situation than we were last week. So how can we feel safe returning on Monday? How can we feel confident that decisions are being made based on data if we are not told which data points are being used in the decision-making process? If we truly are one team, and our one goal truly is student success, we need to know how decisions are being made. Teachers, students, families, we all need to be informed and included in the decision-making process. Which brings me to my final point. Why are school board work sessions held during the
30
school day
seconds.
when teachers, students, and many family members are unable to attend? These work sessions should exemplify the one team, one goal motto, but most of us team members are unable to attend or even watch the meeting as it's happening. Please consider moving work sessions to a more accessible hour. As with any team, our greatest asset is each other, but we cannot work together if we can't even watch what our leaders are doing every month. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kara Harris, who will discuss team trust and accountability. She will be followed by Kelly Crutchfield.
Good evening. I am here representing Cobb's 1 speaking to ensure that all team members' voices are heard. Tonight, I would like to thank our superintendent for practicing safe science and having all Cobb students learn virtually this week. As you can see from the data I provided you from the Georgia Department of Public Health, the numbers of children ages 5 to 17 who have tested positive for COVID-19 are on an upward trend. And those are the first 6 boxes on the pages in front of you. During the Cobb County Commissioners meeting on January 12th, Dr. Meork stated that there was a high rate of transmission for the virus in Cobb County and encouraged residents to stay home as much as possible and not gather together. She specifically asked parents who are able to keep their students home from face-to-face school. For all Cobb residents, the new daily case rate is 78 per 100,000 people, which is considered a severe outbreak for people to take all possible precautions to avoid exposure, as seen in the data provided on the bottom of page 4. The 14-day confirmed case rate for the county is 931 per 100,000 people as of yesterday. Residents, and that's at the top of the 4th page, or the 5th page, I'm sorry. The Center for Disease Control indicates that we are in the highest risk category for transmission in schools, as seen in the 5th and 6th page of the document. And the percent of ICU beds being used in Cobb County stands at 98% occupancy.
30 seconds.
The only conclusion that can be drawn from this data is that we are in a precarious position in the county and in our schools. The logical and data-based decision at this time seems clear. In order to slow the spread of the virus that has been around way too long, we must stay virtual. If students and teachers and staff are virtual at this time, it will allow people with the virus to get well. It will allow the virus to be less prevalent in our schools and mitigate the need for further school closures.
Time.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Kelly Crutchfield, who will discuss in-school choice. She will be followed by Caroline Holko.
Good evening. I am no stranger to grief, having lost both of my parents very suddenly, a month apart, some years ago. When we suffer heartbreak, as we do tonight at the tragic loss of our beloved Mrs. Johnson, it is easy to allow emotion to cloud our judgment and dictate our actions. So I'm here tonight as a voice of reason to reiterate the overwhelming evidence that we know to be true. Schools are essential to students and families. They are not super spreaders of this virus, and the toll of shutting them down is far greater than the unproven benefits. Let me share with you a sobering statistic. The United Nations estimates that in spite of the best intentions from medical and health experts all over the world who recommended shutting down to save lives, 130 million additional people starved to death because of these shutdowns in 2020. While some of you may have the best of intentions of saving lives by shutting down our schools, the data just doesn't support this. Studies of schools that are open in the U.S. and around the world have demonstrated repeatedly that children are not major sources of transmission, either to their peers or to adults. This is especially important when we consider teacher safety and the risks claimed to be posed by in-person teaching. Furthermore, attending school in person has not shown to be correlated with diagnosis of COVID-19. Conversely, the unintended consequences of virtual-only learning have led to soaring rates of depression, anxiety, addiction, suicide, not to mention untold academic cost. Without schools, our economy can't function. And as demonstrated by this UN data, denying people livelihoods directly correlates to a loss of life. CTLS has enabled the higher risk to learn at home, but forcing everyone into virtual-only learning when there is no data to support it will minimize transmission or save lives is unscientific and dangerous. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Caroline Holko, who will discuss proactive planning. She will be followed by Adaransola Aladasanmi.
Good evening, Superintendent, members of the board, assorted staff. I just have one basic question for y'all that I know you're not going to answer me because that's not how meetings work, but I want you to really think about this. I know there's a lot of people who have very strong feelings about going back to face-to-face and going virtual. Obviously, I have a very specific point of view. It's not a secret. But why exactly do you want the schools to be open in this time of horrifying community transmission? Really? Like, what is it that you think that the schools will provide to our community that is worth the risk? Because I have to tell you, honestly, if you just make the call, if you use your leadership role to say that you are going to do what's best for the community and go 100% virtual, that opens up resources to parents that are not available unless the schools are officially closed. If the schools are closed, parents can get SOLVE funds. If the schools are closed, people who have to work can take leave and apply for expanded unemployment. But residents, our community can only access these things if you make the right decision. If you make the decision to close the schools, then our community can
30
access
seconds.
resources that are specific to this situation. Please, I am begging you to do the right thing. Protect our teachers, protect our staff, protect our students, protect our community. How many people have to die? Have you asked yourself that? How many people have to die? How many members of our community have to die? Have a great day.
Our next speaker is Adarinsola Aladasanmi, who will discuss name change of Wheeler, and she will be followed by Jennifer Rathman.
Hello, everyone. My name is Darren Aladasami, and I'm a proud graduate of Wheeler's class of 2020. I've come here tonight to request this board clearly outline policy measures on how to carry out school name changes proposed by district members. Without a doubt, Wheeler provided me with the best experiences and community. I actively sought out to attend a diverse high school like Wheeler because I understood how enriching such an experience could be. I remember feeling so at home walking in every day and seeing those 80 flags in the entrance of the school because it was an affirmation, a powerful message that Wheeler strives to honor and celebrate the different cultural identities of every student. Knowing that Wheeler's diversity is one of the most cherished aspects of the school, it is deeply embarrassing that the school is named after a Confederate general. Time does not erase nor lessen the severity of the things Joseph Wheeler stood for and the systems he participated in. He was a man that actively worked against the very existence and freedoms of the majority of Wheeler's student body. And it is specifically that legacy of hate and bigotry that was called on when the district purposefully named the school after him, as a symbolic threat to Black families integrating into schools of the area. We owe it to students of the past, present, and future to change the name of the school. We cannot genuinely celebrate the diversity Wheeler has to offer without doing so. Renaming the school is a chance to right the wrongs of the past, to be on the right
30
side
seconds.
of history, and to unashamedly publicly affirm and celebrate the different identities of Wheeler students and family. Renaming Wheeler High School in no way takes away from the accomplishments of its students and alumni over the years, nor does it take away from the school's role in the community. If anything, changing the name of this school is a bold declaration of the Wildcat Nation's resilience and commitment to inclusivity. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to your written response within the next 30 days.
Our next speaker is Jennifer Rathman, who will discuss hand sanitizing equipment. She will be followed by John Nwosu.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I first wanted to speak quickly about transparency in general. Parents really want you to be able to provide us with the objective measures that you are using to make your COVID-related decisions. Whether you're opening or closing the schools, when your actions are inconsistent, it really creates great mistrust. For example, when schools were closed before the holiday break because of community spread, and then it became worse after people traveled over the holiday, and yet schools were opened. no objective measures were provided to parents as to why that was. It just didn't feel like we were following science there, and that was sort of disturbing. And then on a related note, I was disturbed to read that the board had approved a recent purchase of $12 million for hand sanitizing equipment, and yet no basic data as to the efficacy of this equipment was provided, even after Dr. Howard
30 seconds.
and Ms. Davis requested it. We've already got kids sanitizing and washing their hands in school, and so I was deeply disturbed by this purchase and the fact that no data was provided to anybody. I'd really like to know what the board is doing to discuss what measures it's taking to improve ventilation in our schools rather than hand sanitizers. That's what
Time.
I'd like to see. Thank you.
Our next speaker is John Nwasu, who will discuss team trust and accountability, and he will be followed by Connie Jackson.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here representing Cobb's team, speaking to ensure that all team members' voices are heard. Right now, it's difficult to trust the coaching staff with the decisions that are being made. As someone who grew up in Cobb, with a 7-month-old and a beautiful recently pregnant wife and parents who are approaching old age, I'm speaking as a stakeholder. Cobb is the second largest school district in Georgia and top 25 in the nation. There are more than 113,000 students and nearly 20,000 employees. The likelihood that I will interact with someone who is directly impacted by the board's callous disregard of science is as high as the coronavirus numbers in our county. Numbers are higher now than they were when the school system initially shut down in March. Cobb is averaging about 600 new cases and 8 new deaths per day. It's like you're playing Russian roulette with the workers' lives each work and school day, and by extension, the lives of anyone who interacts with them. Cobb roulette is not a game I signed up for and not one I wish to continue to play. Cobb's teachers and staff are essential, but that does not mean they are expendable. At the root of all of this is that many families have to choose between refusing to work or learn in a risky environment or paying the bills. Please let the record show that this team member would like to be heard. I'm wondering who is held to account when we lose, because I'm tired of losing trust, but more importantly, I'm tired of losing health and lives to preventable deaths during this global pandemic. Thank you for your time and consideration. Have a great night.
Our final speaker, Mr. Chair, is Connie Jackson. She will discuss COVID.
Good evening. I'm here again. You've heard from a lot of people, and if you didn't hear the cars and everything outside, there were a lot of people out there because they're scared, they're mad, they're angry, and that's because they don't think anybody cares. 2 people died today, 2. There are 2 schools, 2 sets of students and staff that are in mourning. This needs to be a topic for the school board. It needs to be discussed. It needs to be publicly talked about and understanding, because there is so much going on out there, and employees are at their breaking point. They've been scared for too long that it's turning into anger. And hearing the 2 deaths today did it. It pushed people over. Because all of you know, teachers are not great for standing up for themselves. That's why I have to do it. But today, they did. And they did for one reason, because they are tired of not knowing. They're tired of putting their lives at risk and not knowing why. It's time that we either stay all virtual, split the 2 jobs, online
30 seconds.
and in person, and we need to hear it. We need to hear you guys discuss it, talk about it, and make us feel like it matters to you, because it matters to us. And it matters to every person who's walking into those schools. It's time for this to be out in the open, because it's not going anywhere, unfortunately, anytime soon.
Time.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank our speakers for being very informative and succinct. And thank you, Mr. Doyle, for taking care of that. Moving on to the agenda, we have items requiring action. Mr. Doyle, I think I might need some help here, but since we're going to do legal at our next executive session, so I'll entertain a motion for personnel and land as discussed in executive session. Pardon?
I think you'd kick it to the superintendent, who will pick it up from there, Mr. Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. That is yours, isn't it? Thank you. Takes the heat off.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I want to start out before we get to items requiring action and put our condolences out for Miss Lindsay, who also passed away. She worked at Sedalia Park. I was aware of her passing earlier today, but had been asked not to share that publicly until later this evening. So our thoughts and prayers certainly go out to her family and also to the team members at Sedalia Park. With that, I will ask our Chief HR Officer, Keely Bowen, to bring items requiring action following executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent, Mr. Chair, members of the board. It's my pleasure to bring to you the Human Resources Personnel Report for today, January 21st, 2021. The administration recommends the approval of the identified employment actions of those individuals listed on the Personnel Action Report as discussed in executive session. We have one principal level or higher recommendation. We recommend that you approve the following action. Travis McComb, employment as Director, Accountability and Property, SPLOST Department Operations Division, effective February 1st, 2021. This concludes the Human Resources Personnel Report.
Chair will entertain a motion. Mr. Chastain.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the personnel report as presented.
Do I have a second? Mr. Hutchins, second. Discussion. Seeing done. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 7. And all opposed are 0. Mr. Ragsdale. I thought we had, didn't we talk about land? Or we don't have a, okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Ragsdale. Next is our action items, agenda items. Well, actually, we only have 2, but the first one's consent. So all in favor?
Mr. Chair, at this time,
without objection? Okay.
If there's no objection, the one consent item would stand approved.
Just trying to move us along here, folks. And Mr. Ragsdale, number 2.
Yeah, agenda item number 2, I'm going to ask our Chief Financial Officer, Brad Johnson, to come and bring this item.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, Mr. Superintendent, members of the board, agenda item number 2 is the ratification of a note resolution confirming the acceptance of the best bid for the purchase of $100 million in short-term construction notes. The details of this proposed short-term note were discussed at length this afternoon at the board work session. It is estimated that construction costs in Cobb County are increasing 4 to 5% each year. By borrowing funds in advance of receipt of monthly SPOS collections and starting projects at the beginning of a calendar year, it is estimated to save that construction projects could be accelerated and be less expensive, resulting in substantial savings to the school district. The plan proposes the issuance of $100 million in short-term construction notes for calendar year 2021. The short-term construction notes will be due before December 31st, 2021. The best bid interest rate is 0.013155% from the financial firm of Morgan Stanley. The superintendent's recommendation is to approve the resolution confirming the acceptance of the best bid for the purchase of $100 million in short-term construction notes, which will then provide administration the authority to move forward to borrow the money. Mr. Chairman, this is our request for board approval tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Chair will entertain a motion for agenda action item number 2. Move. A second. Mr. Wheeler is second. And now I entertain any discussion. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. I count 7 and none against. Mr. Doyle, to make sure that our minutes are accurate, we did, I think, confer as a board in executive session to extend into a second session, but I think that would entail changing our agenda, would it not?
I recall that we did it without objection, so I would say at this time it would be proper to entertain a motion to go back into executive session to discuss litigation matters.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to go back into executive session. Mr. Chastain, is there a second? Mr. Hutchins saw his hand first. Discussion about going back into executive session. Seeing none, all in favor, going back in? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All opposed? 1. 1 opposed and 1 present.
And Mr. Chair, can we say that the meeting will stand automatically adjourned when the executive session is over? The board will take no action tonight.
Yes. Do I need to repeat that, or is that okay if I ditto that?
If there is no objection, you can make it so.
If there is no objection. Okay. So everybody is excused to leave except for board members and legal, correct? Okay. And then we formally adjourn after our executive session. Is that correct, Mr. Doyle?